Hi, welcome back to the final part of this realflow particle morphing tutorial. Now in this final part we're just going to put everything together. We're going to have all the final morphs done and we're going to have the whole thing disintegrate and hit the floor. Now I've taken the liberty of rendering out, simulating out, the first 230 frames, and you can see what we have so far. The pool of liquid that starts on the floor and then morphs into the word simply while dripping liquid downwards. Now this is fine for what it is, but the thing is we don't have a very clear definition around this simply shape. I'd like to make it a bit sharper. Part of the reason we don't get such a clear shape is because we're not using enough particles during our test, but we can actually force these particles closer together to give us a clearer definition around the object we're morphing to. And the way we can do this is with the external pressure. External pressure does pretty much what it says on the tin. It creates external pressure on the particles, thus forcing them closer together. But I don't want this to happen all at once. I want to keep this nice wavy movement where the particles are all far apart. I'd like that to happen at the end, so as it starts to drip water it gives the appearance that it shrinks a little bit. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to start on frame 150 and I'm going to key the external pressure on the square emitter, which is our actual liquid, to 0, add key, and then I'm going to go up to frame, say 230, and I'm going to key the internal pressure here at, say, 100 and, well, let's make it a bit more, 250. So add key, and when I scrub through the timeline you should see that change. So if I just go back to where we set that, actually we have an external pressure here of 0. Double click to bring up the editor, and that's why. Make this a stepped key, and there we go. So now we have an external pressure of 1 up until frame 150, remains 1, and then it goes up to 250. And if we just hit this, we can actually have that increase a bit over time. So what we'll do is we'll go to frame 144, let's say, and just hit simulate. And you should see here, I'll just pause until the end of the simulation. Okay, our simulation has finished, and what you'll see is we have particles that are more densely packed, and also gives a more clearly defined morph to the end here. So we still have that nice wavy motion, and then as we get past frame 150 the particles start to come together more and give us more definition. Now with so few particles this is not so important, but when we increase the resolution later on and create more particles, this will make quite a bit of a difference. Now the second stage of what we need to do now is force this word simply to morph to the word Maya. So we'll reset this. We'll drop in another magic demon to do the morph. Okay, we'll make sure that under this magic demon, which we'll rename just to make life a bit easier, we'll call this Maya Morph. Morph even, and we'll tell it which object to affect. Maya object. We will set the magic mode to nearest face and random within face to no, again for the same reason that we did before. We'll set the approach strength. We'll try quite a high approach strength. Let's make it 25 because I want the morph to happen quite quickly, and the escape strength to 35 so our particles don't escape before they morph. And now you should see this rise up and change from the word simply into the word Maya. So I will simulate and pause. Okay, I can immediately see what's happened here. As soon as I start simulating, we're going to morph to the word Maya and skip the word simply, because we have both morphs active at the same time, which is not what we want. So what we need to make sure is that the simply morph is active until frame 230, and then at frame 230 the Maya morph turns on. So we'll give ourselves more frames to work with. To 400, we'll select the Maya morph, we'll select its node, we'll make it inactive, we'll keyframe that, reset, and we'll go up to frame 230. Oops. There we go. And we'll set this to active and keyframe. Now it should be inactive up until frame 230. Okay, so back to frame 0. We'll take the simply morph. We'll make it active at frame 1 and inactive at frame 230. Okay, so that should be active. Okay, what we need to do there is double click and make this last keyframe a stepped key, so it's active and then inactive. So active and then inactive at 230, yes, and the opposite way around for this one. Okay, so now what will happen is the morph, or the magic daemon, which we're using for morphing, will be active from frame 130, and it will attract the particles to the word simply, and then at 230 it will turn off, and the Maya magic daemon will turn on and attract the particles to the word Maya. I think the best way to show you this is to do a quick simulation and let you see for yourself. So I'll just pause. Okay, so I've let that simulate up to frame 333, and if I scrub through the timeline, you'll see the morph. So we go from the water on the floor up to the word simply, over to the word Maya, and that's what we have. But you'll notice we're now having drips still appearing from where we set up the simply drips object, so it's still dripping from the simply object, not from the Maya object. So we have what is a quite nice looking morph. I'll just set the playback to 333 and run it through. That's sort of the effect I was looking for. Obviously it's not playing back at 30 frames a second, which is what we'd be probably using. It's playing back faster than that, but you get the general idea. So what we need to do now is create a new drip object to drip from the word Maya, not from the word simply. And in order to do this, we need to stop this emitter dripping at around frame 235. Now, previously, to stop daemons, we've made them active or inactive. If you make an emitter inactive, what will happen is all the particles will just freeze. So we can't do it like this. In fact, I'll show you what happens just so you know. We'll select the drip object, which is here. It's inactive until, where was it? Frame 40. So what we'll do is we'll make it inactive on frame 235, and you'll see what happens. So I'll click Add Key. I'll double click to make it a stepped key. Okay, so you'll see what's going to happen here. It's going to be inactive, active, inactive. Oh, sorry, I did set that key the wrong way around. 1 second, then I'll just set it the right way around. Sorry, it should be inactive, not active. Add key, and now you'll see inactive, active, inactive. So, if I simulate now, what you might expect to happen was it would just stop dripping water, and the water that was there would continue to fall and roll around on the floor, but it doesn't work that way with realflow. If I hit simulate, and we go, you can see the drips still coming, and around 335 you'd expect them to turn off, but what actually happens is they just freeze in midair. So to combat this, what we need to do is we'll go back to 335, we'll double click this to bring up the curve editor, we'll just take this keyframe out, so it's inactive and then just infinitely active, and what we'll do instead is we'll keyframe its speed. So at a speed of 0 it will stop emitting particles. So we'll select the drips object, we'll scroll down until we find its speed attribute under object, and we'll keyframe this, add key, we'll go up to say frame 210, we'll keyframe it again, we'll open this so you can see there's the keyframe. It's set at the speed of 0.2. If I click on, you'll see that 0.2 up until frame 210. It remains at 0.2. Okay, then at 235 we're going to want it to stop dripping altogether. So we'll go up to 235 here in the timeline. We'll just select the speed and we'll key this to 0 and hit add key. Now if I go back before 210 and just simulate, you'll see here that we're dripping, and by 235 we should stop, and we've stopped. So now that one's stopped, we need to add another emitter to create the drips from the Maya object. So I'll reset the simulation altogether. I'll resimulate it for you after we've created the emitter. So first we just create another object emitter, and this one we're going to have drip water from Maya, or the Maya object should I say. So same as last time, I'll just turn the visibility back on and make it active so it's easier to see. I will select this object emitter, which we will rename to Maya drips, and again same as last time, we'll select the vertices, select the object, so select the object, which in this case would be our Maya drips, the object emitter, tell it which object to use, Maya, select the vertices, so we'll just go in and shift select a few of these. Again, when you do this you can take your time and have drips coming from all over the place, or very few, or however you would want it, but for the purposes of this it's enough that we just select a few. Okay, click select vertices again, or select vertex again. You can leave that on, it doesn't really matter. It's just if you do accidentally select the object with that turned on, it will get rid of all of the points you've selected. So this can be a bit annoying if you've taken a long time to set that up. Now what we need is, we don't want this to drip until after frame 230. The problem is that we don't want to key it as active and inactive, so we'll key the speed instead. So set the speed to 0, add a key, go up to say frame 225 and set the speed to 0.2 and add another key. Then we want it to start dripping around 230, 235, so we'll go to 235 and set the speed here. Let's just see what happened there. Okay, we're slowly progressing to 0.2 over time. That's not what we want. We want a stepped key, so we want 0 to 2. So we'll double click here, select this and make it a stepped key. So now we go from 0 straight to 0.2. So it shouldn't drip at all up until around frame 2. Where did we set that? Yep, 230, and then it will start dripping at the same speed as the previous drip object we had. So I will now simulate and show you this. Oh, before I do that, we need to, of course, take it out of the global links, and because we want it to interact with the ground plane, but we also want it to interact with gravity, and we don't want the gravity in the global links, because if we do that then the gravity will interfere with our morphing, which we don't want. So this is again quite a simple procedure. We just left mouse drag this from the node list into the exclusive list, and then we click the plane, which is our floor, drag it in there, and that will now interact with the plane, and we do the same thing with the gravity. We'll drag it in there. Now we'll have two drip emitters, so one will start when the other one stops. This will stop drips being emitted just into space, and they'll actually drip from the object itself. So I'll do a quick simulation of this so you can get a better idea of what it will look like when you do it. Okay, I've just resimulated, and now you'll see if we scrub through, you have our drips coming from our simply object until we hit frame 230, and then our drips start. You can see them here in grey. If I select the Maya drips, you can see our drips start to come from the Maya object. So we don't get drips forming from an old object that's no longer there. Now the last thing we need to do in this tutorial, just to finish it off, is have the entire liquid that we have in the scene drop and hit the floor. Now how we're going to do this is we're just going to add a gravity daemon. So we'll go up to the daemons again and add gravity. Now this one is going to be in the global links, but of course it needs to be turned off until we decide we want this to hit the floor. which should be around, I think, frame 330, let's say. So we'll go up to 330. And here we will want to turn our gravity daemon active, set a key for it, add key, go back to frame 0, make it inactive, set a key for it, and go in there and make sure that's a stepped key. So hit the stepped key, it'll be inactive until frame 330, which you can see up here. We'll click that. So what will happen at frame 330, gravity will turn on, and the morphs should all turn off, so we're not having gravity and a magic demon, or our morph demon, fighting with each other. So what we'll do is we'll go to frame 330. We'll make sure our active morph, which is the Maya morph, is turned off. So to do this, we'll just set its simulation to inactive, add a key, double click, we'll make sure that that's a stepped key. Okay, so what we have here is it will be inactive, bang. So the morph will turn itself off, the gravity will kick in, the whole thing will drop to the floor. We'll go to our drips object, and at 330 we will want that to be off as well, because we won't want drips coming from mid-air when everything starts to fall towards the floor. So here's what we'll do. In fact, we need to select the Maya drips, not the Simply drips. We will go here to 330, key this off, add key. Just want to check our Maya morph is actually off. It's inactive, active, okay, inactive, okay, and our gravity daemon we need to set to inactive until frame, we actually set that at 230. What we needed to do was set it at 330. So, oh no, sorry, set the gravity daemon up here. It's active all the time, so we'll go to 0, set it to inactive, set a key for it, go to 330, and make it active. Add a key, again, making sure it's a stepped key. Okay, so I'll simulate from here, and what should happen is at frame 330 the morph should turn itself off, the drips should turn themselves off, or not make themselves inactive, but rather go to a 0 speed so they're not emitting, and everything should fall and hit the floor. So if we simulate, okay, we'll go up to 330, just pause. Okay, and you can see our gravity does kick in, our drips stop, and everything plummets towards the floor. But if you remember, we have no floor plane in the global links, because we didn't want to interfere with our particle morph when it first started. So what we can do now is put the plane back in the global links, and one quick way to cheat is just to re-simulate with this plane in just before it hits the floor. So we'll re-simulate from here, and now this will strike the floor plane. And there we go. So I'll let this simulate out, we'll play it back, and we can see what our final result is. Okay, I'll set the playback to 400. I will rewind and hit play. And there you have it, basic particle morphing in realflow. Now obviously this is not intended to be the finished product, this is intended to be more of a guideline to help you on your way. You can see with this here that we have some drips coming down fast and then slowing down. This is also because this is not playing back in real time, and we have quite little in the way of particles, so when it comes to meshing, you're not going to get a fantastic result. One way, of course, to deal with this is to select the initial object and change the resolution for it back from 0.1, which we have here, to 1, and when we reset, you'll see that we now have many more particles in the scene. So if we resimulated now, it would take a lot longer, but it would give us a better end result. Anyway, I hope this tutorial has given you some insight into basic morphing in realflow and what you can do with some of the realflow daemons. If you'd like to know more about realflow, please check out our site, simplymaya.com, and thanks for watching.